Alright, so I went ahead and creating this video because it seems like recently there's more and more folks out there getting copies of our 15-year journey, right? The story of one rental up through financial independence. And with that, I'm getting more and more folks saying, "Hey, would you do some mentorship or coaching or anything of that nature?" And my intention is to never sell anything, right? Not selling the book, giving away freely. I won't be, don't see myself becoming a coach or a mentor or charging, X amount of dollars to do this or that. That's just, that's not who I am. That's not what I believe in. I believe all this information should be packaged up and given for free. So what I did is I spent the last day or so kind of cobbling together what I would think a mentorship program would look like, or a mentorship presentation should look like, if we were focused on buy and hold rentals. Right, that's the only thing I can speak about with any intelligence, right? It's what I've done for now 16 or 17 years. So I thought I would put this together, kind of run through it once, record it, and then just put it out to the world. And hopefully all of you enjoy it and sparks questions and comments, which I hope you have. You leave below. Hit the like button for me because it helps the channel. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Like all the presentations, we're going to go through the goal. So I'm now calling it a 45-minute presentation. It's going to getting you basically getting you to your first rental, and if you already happen to have one, it's your next rental. But this is meant to be, somebody early in their career, right? They were excited, they're getting started, but they're not really sure where to start. So that's what this is focused on. And it should go as without saying, but I want to put it out there that everything in this video is sort of my opinion. And frankly, some of it's going to go against what the experts say. I'm actually getting concerned with all the different Facebook and HGTV and all these other videos making flipping or wholesaling seem like it's easy. And believe me, it's not. I've seen many a post recently about people, quote unquote, quitting their full-time jobs to start wholesaling or start flipping. And as all of you should know, I invested through the last seller's market and the crash. And the same thing happened. Lots of people were quitting to become flippers. And, it worked great for a little while, and then it exploded spectacularly. So it's not something I suggest. I am talking to full-time employees who probably make a decent income and have lots of expenses. That's not something I recommend. Don't get excited by somebody saying it's easy, or hey, look at me, look at this check, or any of those things. That's good for them, right? If they do it, good for them, but please don't fall for that. The other thing is, I think if you do the following, you're going to be in pretty good shape to make that first investment or the next investment. I'm basically setting this up so that you could know with decent confidence that the first property you buy is going to cash flow. And we'll go through some of the mistakes I made when I started, because the first couple I bought, they cash flowed on the spreadsheet, but they were bad deals in the beginning. So I want to share that with you. All right, so where to begin? I believe the first thing you need to do is you need to do a quick self-assessment. You need to sort of understand what you bring to the table, what's good for you, all of that. I think you need to understand that real estate is exciting. It can become a topic at dinner parties and all of that. So you need to really be able to disconnect yourself from that fervor and that energy, because when that happens, bad decisions can happen. I think you really need to look yourself in the mirror or talk with your significant other and really ask why. Why do we want to do this? What are we trying to accomplish? And for most of you, I would hope the answer is you're looking to set up, income streams that will be beneficial years down the line. Sure, they'll produce little trickles here and there in the short term, but they're so small, they're almost not meaningful. But, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you're going to be setting yourself up for a much better stage of life and have a lot more flexibility. That's really what I'm hoping you do when you do these things. The other thing I think you need to realize I really believe this, that real estate investing tries to break you in the beginning, right? It throws challenges at you and it tries to see if you can overcome them. And I told the story in the book, right after what seemingly felt like 2 or 3 years of reviewing properties and markets and all these things, we finally found one, right? It's on a street called Norris Drive, and we were so excited, right? Everything went as planned, right? We got it for the price. We rented it for what we thought. We rented it quickly. And then real estate does what real estate does. The tenant who moved in, which was fully qualified, fully vetted, made plenty of income, ended up separating. The husband and wife separated for whatever reason. The wife took off. The husband didn't like that. And he took out his anger on the property. He never paid $1 in rent, and we had to evict, which took, in my market, 90 days. We had to completely remodel a house more than we did the first time, right? He did the things that you would fear he did. He destroyed a brand new carpet. He put holes in our walls. He was very upset at losing his wife. And I'm sure alcohol was involved and all of those things. But in the end, think about that, right? We spent 2 years looking for a property. We got it. It hit the numbers. And then real estate did what it did. It kicked us in the nuts. And we had to ask ourselves hard questions. I think a lot of people would have probably quit after that first experience, right? They would have repaired it, sold it, lost probably 10 or 15 grand, and considered it a learning experience. But thankfully, talking with my significant other, Olivia, and we plowed through. It wasn't easy. And real estate's going to try to break you. So, know that going in. The other thing I think that is misunderstood about real estate is that it's not easy. It's never as easy as they make it look on TV. I whether it's rentals or flipping or wholesaling or whatever. I don't know what it is about our society, but we all want to believe that in an hour you can make 50 grand or whatever it is. Trust me, it's not that easy. This wholesaling thing that's going around is extremely hard to do. Extremely profitable, don't get me wrong, if you can do it. And there's just plenty of people out there doing it. But it's hard for people to pick up, right? Are you're going to drop $10,000 in marketing expenses? Are you going to try to mail everybody in your city or county or whatever? What are you going to do when they call back, right? How are you going to find? I mean, just lots of stuff going on. So, a little bit concerned about why all these videos are popping up on my Facebook about this or that, or maybe it's just because I post things on real estate. And that's what comes in my feed for some reason. But in the end, know that this is a business. It's not always easy. And then lastly, are you really sure you're going to sign up for a 15-year journey? I really do think it takes 15 years. Maybe if your expenses are lower, maybe you can get it done in 10. But even at 10 years, right? That's a decade. Right? You ready to commit to that? It is certainly worth it. Don't get me wrong. But you have to realize in the next 10 or 15 years, stuff's going to happen, right? You may have one or another child. Your kids may go off to college. Heaven forbid your parents or grandparents need to move in. There's just so many things that could go on that you just need to realize that if you're going to do this, you're going to be climbing the mountain, and not only is real estate going to try to crush you, but life events will come and go. So just make sure you're ready when you get started with this. All right. So what do you bring to the table? Most of the people that follow me, were me 15 years ago, and what I mean by that is, Olivia and I both held a demanding full-time jobs. We had family. We had to pick up the kid at school. We live in an expensive part of the country. There was a lot going on, right? And when I mean by a lot, I mean just for example, I travel over 100,000 miles a year on an airplane. I think I spent over 100 nights in hotels all around the world. Um, I chose a market that was 2.5 hours away one way, so 5 hours round trip. I mean, there's just a lot going on, right? So, realize that it is possible if that's your situation. You've got to be smart. We'll go through a lot of that now, but um, if you have that kind of demanding full-time job, I'm really trying to speak to you. So, a lot of the people I speak with, because again, they have that it could have been sales reps, they could work in technology, they could have saved some money down the line. So most of them will have cash to be able to get a bank loan, but they have almost no time, right? Little time, no time, whatever. So it's how do help me get started, and that's what I'm going to try to do here. The other thing is how are you at networking, right? Talking to people, just understanding what's going on, going to real estate meetings, all of those things. I bring that up because I didn't appreciate that for the first 10 years of my business, and while we got there, I don't think we got there as fast as we could have if I really would have appreciated that real estate is a people business. When I got started, I spent, I don't know, 70% of my time in Excel spreadsheets. 20% of my time kind of looking for deals online, and the other 10% talking to people. And it probably should have been the other way around, right? I should have spent a lot more time talking to people, should have spent more time looking for deals, and less time in Excel, right? I was convinced that there was some magic formula to make Excel make a property look good, and there isn't. You just got to get in. You've got to be very conservative. You got to put more down than the bank will approve. There's just things you can do to make it less stressful. And if you're spending hours building the master spreadsheet, I promise you, you're not helping your business, because it's that's not where the magic's found. It's not found in Excel. The other thing you need to figure out is, do you have experience remodeling, right? Either as, doing your own house, maybe as a general contractor. Are you handy, right? Do you understand what it takes to do this or that? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about actually doing the work. That's not what this is about. But it's understanding that, hey, when a contractor calls you and says, hey, it's going to cost $3,000 to paint a bedroom, you can go, BS, right? Painting a bedroom is, 4 hours of work, 2-guy job, I don't know, 15 gallons of paint, that's $850 or, $1,100 or whatever. So again, it's not about understanding or doing the work, but it's understanding what things may cost and what's out there. The other thing is, do you already know a market, right? Do you live in a market perhaps that works? I do not, obviously. I spent a year wasting my time looking where I live. That was silly. But maybe you know a market. Maybe you grew up in one. Maybe your family's in one. I don't know. But maybe there is a market that you know well, that you have feet on the street or boots on the ground or whatever you want to call it. That's another thing that you may have. Again, do you live in a market that works? Or do you have to go out and find one? Right? I had to go find one, right? I kept drawing circles around my home address, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. And then finally Fresno popped up at the 2.5-hour mark. Do you have to get on an airplane? Heaven forbid. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The other thing is, do you have, decent credit, right? Or great credit? This is important in the beginning because the cheapest financing is bank loans, right? If I had to do this again, I'd be focused on getting the first 4 rentals with cheap 30-year fixed financing and thank my lucky stars, right? I don't think interest rates will be this historically low in 5 or 6 years. So having a 30-year mortgage on a rental at 5% or whatever it is will seem like a great thing in years to come, in my opinion. So. And if they go lower, yeah, heck, just refi, right? It's a big deal. So having good credit in cash is great, and getting out there and getting your first 4 rental property loans is a great idea. And then finally, if you don't know a market, do you have connections with someone? right? A lot of people that I speak with, it's kind of my personal set of friends that first kind of circle around me, have followed me to Fresno. It's obviously the only market I know. But maybe you know someone in your network or your family or your friends or your college roommate or whatever. Maybe they're doing something, and they can bring you to a market, and that's important because you're going to get to start to leverage their team. You're going to reduce the learning curve. You're gonna probably know the areas to go to and stay away from. There's just all these things that having a relationship with someone that knows a market that can bring you. So there's a couple of things that I believe um, you just need to intuitively understand that I sometimes throw out casually, that I want to make sure I stop doing. The first one is no alligators. This one, again, is something I learned painfully. So first, what is an alligator? So, right, an alligator property is one that consumes cash every month. So, your mortgage payment, tax, insurance, repairs, property management, water, garbage, gas, whatever it is, when all of that added up exceeds the monthly income, which means you have to reach into your personal bank account every single month to pay for it, that's an alligator. And I don't care if you have a great job. I don't care if you can afford $100, $200, $300 negative cash flow. You will never succeed in this business buying a single negative cash flow or alligator property. It just doesn't make sense. I don't approve. Simply put more down, right? If you love a property and you want to add it to your portfolio, and the bank says they'll loan 80%, but you do the math and see it's $200 negative, don't take that bank loan. Insist on putting 40% down instead of 20%. Your job at the beginning is to reduce risk. You want to set it and forget it. You want the property just to perform and for you to get your monthly statements, right? And the other thing is don't build spreadsheets that show you have $50 cash, positive cash flow. That's too skinny, right? Go for $100 or more, and don't beat the spreadsheet and lower expenses to pretend. That's not a good idea. I did that in the beginning. I already told you I spent way too much time in Excel because I would just beat the spreadsheet until it spit out a number I liked. And guess what? Life's different. It doesn't work that way. So hopefully you're hearing me. You're never to buy an alligator. Put more down, right? You want to reduce risk and reduce stress. So please just put more down. It's silly not to. Here's another one. So I created an acronym that's called CRAP. It stands for Cash Rich, Asset Poor. Just because you have hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars in the bank, it really doesn't do anything for you. Cash doesn't really do a great job of growing, right? Just sitting there. You need to have assets, and more importantly, income producing assets, to not only help you now, but to really help you in the future. So these are the people that are really gravitating to what I'm offering, because they know and they believe that they need to get some positive cash flow properties, right? No alligators, into their portfolio. And some of them, they're just going to do 2 or 3, right? Others are going to create a plan that's, multi-years in the making, and they will ultimately look to exit earlier or retire earlier financially free. So lots of things are possible. The other one is I'm starting to sort of push the idea that there's only 3 conditions properties can be in, right? Realtor, Redfin, LoopNet, whatever, right? Wherever you find your listings, I propose that there's only 3 conditions a property can be in. It can be in what I call a slumlord, which is the totally run-down, well-used, band-aided, disgusting, maybe empty, uninhabitable piece of junk. There's the well-used, doesn't really look like it's being maintained. Maybe it's technically safe, but it's not something you or I would want to live in. It's most likely rented below market and probably well below market because the landlord or the owner is not doing the maintenance. So what they've decided to do is keep rents low so nobody, no renters squawk, which I think is horrible and just terrible idea, and just not good people. Not good people do that. It's just horrible. I feel so bad for tenants when that happens. And then there's the pride of ownership stuff. Fully remodeled, fully painted, got the new granite backsplash, new toilets, tubs, all that stuff. So I believe everything you look at is going to fall into one of these categories. As you'll see later, I spent way too much time buying well-used stuff, and it could have crushed us. So we'll talk about that later. But you just need to understand and appreciate each of these have their place. Each of these can work out if you have the right criteria, right? If you have lots of time, slumlord stuff's kind of fun, right? Because you can buy it cheaply, spend 90 days fixing it, and create your own little pride of ownership thing. But most of the people I talk with don't have time, and that's and they want to keep risk low. And believe me, buying a slumlord property is significant risk. Then the other one is the word sacrifice. This is one that I think you'll actually see in my top 10 list is pretty important, because the only reason we were truly able to get out of the rat race and retire financially independent was because we sacrificed for 15 years. And I don't think many people appreciate how critical this was to our success, right? We started this real estate investing when we didn't make a lot of money, right? I think I made 20 or 30% of what I made near the end, right? So really tiny, right? Almost nothing. And obviously our incomes went up, in my example, 5x from when we started. So we could have increased our lifestyle. We could have sold our cheap little condo and bought a house in an even more expensive area. We could have changed our cars. We could have gone on expensive trips. We could have done all these extras, and we didn't. And Olivia gets a lot of credit for that, because she's for example, a tremendous cook, and she would have loved a brand new kitchen and fancy oven and stove and all that stuff, and she was okay, right? She knew what we were doing, and she was okay driving a 10-year-old car for a long time, and we did this together. So realize that one of the things you're going to have to do to get out of the rat race is control your monthly expenses. And whatever you can do, don't increase them, right? Because if you increase your monthly expenses $500, you're going to have to add more cash flow properties to exceed that, right? You can't get out of the rat race until your rental income exceeds your monthly expenses. So just appreciate this, and make sure your significant other is on board as well. And then you need a plan, right? You need a consistent plan. Is it, I'm going to buy 2 or 3 a year for the next 10 years? Is it, I'm going to buy one every 6 months? What's the plan, right? And figure that out and be willing to continue moving forward, right? Again, I shared the story earlier about that first property crushing us, but not only did we suck it up and move forward, but we bought the next one and the next one, and eventually it got better, and it's it's an important thing to get started. So first thing to understand is, I don't believe when you're looking to pick a market that you should pick multiple markets, right? Time's your constraint already. So, why pick Dallas and Detroit and, Raleigh, North Carolina and Fresno, California, just for example? It just seems risky to me, right? A divided focus probably means no market is getting the attention they need. So, I'll admit to looking at other markets, right? When we were kind of halfway through this thing, I did that because the market I was in wasn't making sense. Right? We just couldn't find anything. I write about it in my book. If you want a copy, send me an email. But the idea was, we came back to the idea of we just need to look in different spots in our market, because we didn't want to build a new team and divide focus and get on an airplane and all those things. So, if you're gonna if you're comfortable getting on an airplane and being that far away, great. But do me a favor, just pick one market. The other thing you need to figure out is are you comfortable getting on an airplane, right? I know there's lots of people out there that live in very expensive parts of the country or world, and their markets are states away. If you're comfortable with that, by all means, go for it. I will say that I wasn't. That's because I have a problem. I'm a control freak. I want to be able to see, touch the stuff I own. I want to be able to double check my team, certainly in the beginning, to make sure what's going on. So I had to drive. I just knew that about myself. So again, we found a market about 2.5 hours away. But again, it doesn't have to be that way, but that's just what was for us. then what's your criteria, right? What are you looking to buy, right? Are you looking for $100? Are you looking for $200? Are you looking for some cash on cash return, or this or that? I mean, what are you trying to do, right? What is a good buy, right? When I talk to investors and they say, all I'm looking for is a deal. Well, that's not very descriptive, because what's a deal to me may not be a deal to you. So get a little more in tune with what you're looking for, so that if you're looking to, somebody's looking to help you, you can articulate what you're looking for. Some of the things that I look for in a city, when I recommend to people, is it's got to be what I call large, and that's 500,000 people or more. I like to invest in markets where the median is certainly below 300 grand. I just find that you can't really get the cash flow, and you certainly can't get the quantities to be meaningful when the median price in that market's above 300. And then the one that's probably most important to me, that I use as kind of a green, yellow, red flag, is the affordability for that city. Right, affordability. It's published monthly or quarterly for most major markets, so you can look it up. Right, look up affordability Cleveland, or affordability Portland, or Seattle, or whatever. But for me, I look for something 20 or above, which means in this example, 1/5. Right, 20 divided by 100 is 1/5. Right, 1/5 of the population can afford to buy the average home with the average income. That's what I look for. Right, and when markets are screaming like they were in 2008. My market got to 11. That's a problem, right? It's below 20. Right now, my market, I think, is in the low 30s. I think it was 31 or 32 last time I checked. For example, the market of San Francisco, which is close to me, is at 5. I've never seen an affordability of 5. Right? That means 1 in 20 could afford to buy. That's just ridiculous. That's an unhealthy market. I would never buy or put $1 in a market that's at 5. Again, I treat 20 as flipping from green to yellow, and if it gets below 15, it's red for me. So what does that mean? That means if it ever got to 15, you'd probably see me sell some stuff, because I'll be taking some chips off the table. If it gets to 20, I'm kind of sitting still, not really buying anything. But if it gets to 15, I'm a seller. All right, so you found a market. Now, what kind of properties are you looking for, right? Do you want to own single-family homes? This is what most people are used to, right? It's probably what most people, are most familiar with. It actually has the most buyers, so if you're ever looking to get out, it's the biggest market. When you're selling a single-family home, you can sell it to owner-occupants or other landlords. So of real estate, it's the most liquid. Or are you in the beginning and you're going, I want to maximize these bank loans. So I don't know if you know this, but you can get a bank loan, just like a same bank loan for a single family home could get you a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. So some people are like, what, great, let me buy a triplex or a fourplex because I can get more rent per square foot, or more rent for bank loan, or whatever. It's a great idea. Or are you the type of person that says, what, I want to go, forget these small things, I want to go what's called commercial. And a commercial apartment is 5 units and above. Right, if you buy a fourplex, you can go with just standard bank financing. If you buy a fiveplex, you've got to go with commercial financing. The more units you have, the more cash flow, less a vacancy hurts, all of those things. You will certainly have to put more down. Right, commercial financing is an entirely different game, a lot more paperwork. But the key is, the loan is going to be based on the performance of the building. So you're not going to be typically not hurt if there's a downturn, right? Because the bank's going to be very conservative. So you're going to be putting 30, 35, 40% down just to get the loan. But then you'll be cash flowing just fine. The other thing that I didn't appreciate in the beginning, I think it's a critical point now that I learned after spending lots of my hard-earned cash. So again, I made lots of mistakes and it could have crushed us, is what kind of condition do you want to buy? And this goes for all types of properties, houses, small units, and commercial. Right? Do you want to buy the cheapest, ugliest, most rundown property that's empty and trashed? Right? I generically call these slumlords. Some people are attracted by the low price. I know I have been, and that just gets my attention, and I try to figure it out. But you're not going to get a bank loan, so you're going to buy it with cash. You're going to spend a boatload of money, probably 50% of the purchase price at least, on repairs. And at the end, you're going to have one property. Right? So that seems like a lot of cash for somebody who's got a full-time job. And it's very risky because you have contractors and all these things, but it is possible. This is the one that I bought too much of in the beginning. It's what I call the well-used and rented under market, right? Because again, I've already admitted to beating up my spreadsheets, and I always thought, hey, I can buy it where it rents for 800. I'll just go raise rents to 1,000, and wow, that $200 is mine. Well, it doesn't really work that way. I think I talk about it here later. But lots of negative surprises when you do that. The people that are paying 800 for that condition do that because they were trying to, save money and not squawk. But if you go in and just take it to 1,000, now they'll go somewhere else, right? They'll be like, forget you, this place is a dump. Why would I stay here? And in addition, they'll probably play some games, right? They'll stop paying rent, they'll stop paying the 800, then you have to evict them, and that takes 60 days or 90 days, and pretty soon they've gotten 3 months free from you, and oh, by the way, they leave, and you still have to repair the unit. So now you're 6 months in and haven't even gotten $1. It's terrible. So, sorry, I digress, but I did that way too often. And then there's the one that now is what I certainly wish I had done a lot more of in the beginning, and that's buy the low-risk properties that I don't have to think about. Yes, I would have paid a little bit more, but I would have financed most of it, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I would have certainly appreciated the set it and forget it. It would have taken less cash. That's the crazy thing. Buying a private ownership property takes less cash than the other two, right? So if you have a big pile of cash, you should be buying pride of ownership because you'll be able to spread your assets, get the bigger base, allow inflation to help more units. It doesn't intuitively seem that way, but it is, because all the make-ready costs and repairs in the other two options are cash. And when you buy a pride of ownership property, it's done, right? You don't have to think about it. So again, it's a mistake I've done. It hurt. It slowed us down a lot. So again, think about the conditions, especially starting out. So again, just why. I think this is an important point, again, because I made the mistake, so I want to help others not. I think these are where I should have started. It would have been a lot easier road in the beginning. I would have probably owned more real estate, frankly, because I wouldn't have had to waste cash that I was saving for a down payment on a remodel. Especially in the beginning when financing was so easy, I could have certainly bought a lot more stuff. But again, lesson learned. I think the Excel spreadsheets that I've already admitted to spending way too much on are just simply wrong, and if not very wrong, in slumlord and well-used properties. The reason that is because most of the spreadsheets aren't taking into account real expenses, right? Real remodel costs and all of those things, right? They're most likely focused on average monthly expenses or maybe yearly expenses and all of that stuff. But it doesn't take into account all that extra cash you have to put down. And again, I made these mistakes and I beat up those spreadsheets to show positive numbers, and they just didn't work. In my experience, those first two conditions, slumlord and well-used, they take up 2 to 4 times as much cash in the beginning. And that's, in the beginning, that's not where you want to start. With the pride of ownership property, you're going to cheaply finance the remodel costs and let somebody else suffer that. Yes, it'll be more expensive than the other two, but that shouldn't matter. You're going to put the down payment, you're going to set it up so it cash flows, and you're going to just set it and forget it. Right? And then let the cheap 30-year money just pay off and let the tenants pay it off. I think full-time employees with a stack of cash that want to get started really would benefit from the lowest risk and having the most confidence in the numbers. And there's only one that you can have confidence in, and that's these pride of ownership rentals. So now what, right? You found a property. On the first investment, I suggest you try to target the mortgage payment to be 50% of the least amount, right? So if the rent's $1,000, you want the mortgage payment to be right around $500 or $550, somewhere in there, right? This is not what other people say. They say get maximum leverage and all that stuff. And as I promised in the beginning, I'm not the average person. I want to have the lowest risk for you, so you can buy one, set it, forget it, and move on. And if you can keep the mortgage payment about 50%, your chances of success are pretty good. Yes, I admit that this means you're going to put more down. Your leverage won't be great. All that stuff. And again, you don't have to listen to me by any stretch. But I suggest this is what I suggest, at least for the first one. So when you're learning the business, you don't have these these increased risks. I really do think you want the lowest risk possible in the first one, so you can figure out if this business is for you. It's possible that you buy one and you just realize that being a landlord is not for you. That's okay. Might as well do that on a positive cash flow than a low risk. And always, if you put more down, you can always get your money back through a refinance. Maybe you'll refi in a couple of years, 5, 10 years, whatever. Maybe if interest rates go down again, you refi, whatever works. Right? So just because you put a bunch of money down doesn't mean it's locked up forever. If you need the money for some reason, most of the time you can go back and refinance and take it out. Okay. So after you make your first purchase, it's time to see if it performs, right? If you bought a pride of ownership, it hopefully is set it, forget it. You get your monthly reports, you get the lease payment, property management, hopefully no repairs, and you just see if it matches what you think your spreadsheet said. If you bought well used, right, kind of that middle condition, guess what? It's time to raise rents. Well, guess what? You're going to suffer some vacancies. You're probably going to have some evictions. You're going to lose a lot of time between your rental checks, and you're going to be paying that mortgage entirely out of your pocket. And at the end, you're going to end up repairing the unit with more cash, and you're going to, you're going to be putting more into that property than you probably thought. If you bought trashed, empty slumlord stuff, well, guess what? Contractor time, right? You get to suffer through all that joy. And if you're investing in a market far away, it's even more. Right? Time delays, wasting money, stealing perhaps. You're probably at least 90 days from your first check. Again, not if you have the time, by all means, go for it. But I'm typically not talking to people where time is something they have a lot of. They're typically time constrained. So again, if you're time constrained, hopefully it's clear. There's really only one option for you, and that's the pride of ownership property. So closing slide, I thought I would close with my top 10 keys to long-term success. I think I started with this in this presentation. You got to understand what you bring to the table and then what your constraints are. Right? If your constraint is time, then you can't pick something that's going to consume a lot of time. Right? So it seems obvious, but I've heard lots of people want to jump in this business and talk about this and that, and then I ask them what are they constrained by, and they say time, and I'm like, well, you probably can't be a remodeler, right? You probably can't be a flipper, because that's a full-time job. So team, I think the team, right? Real estate is a people business. I think working with a team, a trusted team, one that you build and grow over time is important. I know a lot of our success is because of the team that we're involved with, for example. I think slow and steady wins the race. I've known investors over time that go down for a weekend and buy 5 properties, where before they own 0. I don't think that's a great approach, because just how do you know, right? I mean, come on. I like a strategy where you're doing 1 a quarter, 1 every 6 months, whatever feels right to you. But I think consistency far exceeds rushing in. Be conservative. It's probably clear by now that I recommend putting more down than most people think. I think it's about the lower risk. I think it's about setting up long-term success. You already have enough stuff going on. Why add risk to a part of your life that's supposed to help you long-term? I do think you need to consistently learn, stay engaged, watch the market. Right? If you bought a property, that doesn't mean stop looking at property, but it just means, maybe you don't buy one for a little while or make an offer. But I do think you need to stay engaged, reading, even if it's just the headlines, CNBC, Fortune, Wall Street Journal, whatever, right? Real estate, really understanding what's going on nationally, real estate wise is important. But really all the decisions come down to a local level. I really do think communication is key with your significant other, because again, real estate's going to trick you, right? It's going to punish you. It's going to throw bad shit at you, and you need to figure out if you can get through that. The worst thing you can have is a non-committal partner, and the first eviction comes and they make you feel bad. That's not okay. I'm thankful and that never happened to me. I have seen it happen to others. So please understand that you need to go above your way to communicate not only early before you start, but keep communicating going forward about what's going on. You need to control your emotions. This is something that I actually learned in sales and sales management, but you can't let yourself get too high or too low. And both of those are important. The excitement of getting a deal, closing a deal, getting a tenant is awesome. But if you let yourself get too high, you'll let the bad things take you too low. So make sure you control your emotions and try to stay inside a tight band. This is one that I saw a lot of people do in 2008, 2009. They got cocky. They went out and bought crazy sports cars. I remember one guy in Fresno went out and bought a $300,000 or $400,000 car. I think there was one of 8 or one of 9 ever created. That's just silly. The real estate market, and frankly any market, it could be cryptocurrency, it could be internet stocks, it could be whatever. Right when you get cocky and think you have the Midas touch, it will crush you. And it'll crush you hard. So don't do that. And this is I think I started this in the beginning. I'm starting to see lots of Facebook ads and trainers and all of this stuff, and it's starting to feel like too many people are getting cocky, like they have the Midas touch. And I've lived through multiple crashes, both the .com crash that hurt me personally and the real estate crash that I profited from handsomely. And I fear that those people are just the next ones to get hurt. Don't be one of those. You must get started. A lot of people I talk to seem like they're doing the right work, they're doing the right things, but they never pull the trigger. They never pull the trigger probably because they don't have faith in what they're doing or going. Hence the things that I'm creating, right? The Pride of Ownership rental. I recommend more down, right? I'm trying to put in place a plan that will help these people. But you've got to pull the trigger, right? You got to buy the first one. You can't get to the financial independence by just talking about it. You've got to buy one. And then I promised this earlier. I think the number one thing is sacrifice, right? And it's consistent sacrifice. We right or wrong, right? We took every excess dollar and we put it into the next real estate business for well over 12 years before we got anything nice. Yeah, we went on vacations and we had 2 cars and we didn't go to the, we didn't cut to the bone, but we certainly didn't, as our incomes rose, we did not change our lifestyle in any great regard. And it was controlling our monthly expenses for a long time that allowed us to get to the point of financial independence. So I think sacrifice, and more specifically, consistent sacrifice is vitally important. So hopefully you like that. It's just about 45 minutes. Do me a favor, hit the like button. This did take a long time to put together. Hopefully some of you actually stuck through the whole thing. Do me a favor and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Also, lots of you have friends that are thinking about real estate. Send this link to them. Please post this. Why don't we try to do this? Why don't you tag 5 of your friends and ask them to watch it? I'd like to see this channel grow and this particular video take off, as I get asked all the time. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you got a couple of things out of this, and have a great day.